Ivory Coast is a former French colony which used to be called the Pearl of West Africa, where Europeans could sun themselves on perfect beaches without a thought for the problems that plagued surrounding countries. Today, French influence is waning. There have been 3 coups and a civil war in the last 5 years. Ivory Coast is becoming more like its neighbours. Well over half the land we flew over was being farmed, was well organised into different fields, whereas in Liberia and Sierra Leone none of the land you fly over is being farmed, even though it's arable, fertile. There's acres and acres of rubber trees. So you wouldn't think that of the 3 countries you've been to, this is the one that people are saying is on the verge of a war. Fighting broke out in 2002, but rebel troops failed to remove the president. While most foreigners moved out, French troops moved in and have managed to keep the warring factions apart for over a year. If you look closely, you can see it hasn't had a lick of paint for, well, it looks like at least 10 years. Even the cocoa tower, cocoa was the crop which made this country rich. It looks like it's rusty or the paint's peeling. It's exactly like the swimming pool. From a distance, it's got to be one of the largest swimming pools in a hotel in the world. It's massive, but it's empty, and the paint on the ground is peeling. The tiles are cracking. Things like that massive swimming pool were part of what was called the Ivorian miracle. At a time when the rest of Africa was suffering coups and civil wars, Ivory Coast was supposed to stand out as the success story, hugely rich through cocoa production. The capital, Abidjan, on the south coast, is the government stronghold, where some of President Gbagbo's supporters despise the French for enforcing a peace process that not only stops them from defeating the rebels, but forces them to share power.
God has no forgiveness for rebels. That is why Jacques Chirac, that son of Satan, has come to recognize them.
We are considered to be free since 1960. This is why we ask French people to let us free. We free. We need a political freedom. We need an economic freedom.
But the anti-French feeling isn't all just talk. The first night in Ivory Coast, and within about 2 hours, I had my first death threat. I was told this might happen, but 3 kids walked past as I was walking into a place, and they shouted something, which is obviously an insult. So I stopped and turned around and said something, really eloquent back, like you looking at. At which point one of them stopped and he just went, Jean Hélène, shouted Jean Hélène to me. Jean Hélène was a French radio journalist who was shot in the head at point blank range just over 2 weeks ago here in Abidjan. And because we're white, they assume we're French, and they're clearly celebrating the death of anyone French here.